I'm Anthony McCauley, and this is Skills at Scale. Big data is big business. And you're joining us for the launch of our phase 2 of Skills at Scale. We had phase 1 back in February, following a pilot which we carried out. And now we're happy to say that we've enhanced it. We've taken on all the feedback that we've got over that time, and we're ready to go with the next version of it. This morning I'm going to be joined by Ruairi Cahill. Ruairi's from Bank of Ireland, and he's head of the investment and retail banking program. They're looking at refreshing models within that, and he's going to talk about that later on, talk about the importance of data and how Skills at Scale has been used within his team and the difference that it's making. And I'm also joined by Maz Alabed, and Maz is from Data Camp. And what Maz is going to do is just give you an idea as to how you enable some of the pathways we've developed, give you an idea of the experience once you're on the platform, so that people will be comfortable when they register, that they can go onto the platform and away they go, they can start engaging with it and using it. I'm just going to share my screen and start to take you through our agenda for this morning. Okay, I'm just going to make this full screen. Okay, so here we go. As I said, I'll go through Skills at Scale, what it's all about. By the way, I run the Skills at Scale project for Technology ICT SkillNet, and my own background has been in for the last, formerly head of research for Fujitsu, with a fair grounding in AI and artificial intelligence and data science and things like that, and hence my role in trying to shape these pathways. But as I'd explain, it's very much data, or it's very much industry driven. We take on board the views of industry. I'll outline the roadmap that we've had, how you can register and then start your journey, which is obviously the important piece. We'll then have a perspective from Ruairi with respect to the value of analytics and a little bit about the impact that Skills at Scale has had within his team at Bank of Ireland. And then, as I said, Maz will just give you a little indication of what it's all about, how you get onto it, how you start using it. And if we have any questions in the meantime, we'll capture those and we will go through them. Okay, so the title of our webinar is Big Data is Big Business, and that's because data is a very, very rich commodity. The impact of AI and data on the Irish economy could be absolutely significant with respect to 2020, 30 and beyond. The real value of data is it's a gift that continues to give. Once you've mined that data and curated that data, there's huge opportunities to interpret that data, to build models, and to interpret it for customer experience and for other aspects of revenue development within the company. So it really is a significant asset, and companies need to absolutely make the most of it. The challenge is it's finding one of the challenges is very much trying to find the right types of skills. And as you can see on the left here, this was a study that was done recently by the European Union, and real challenges with hiring the right types of skills within Europe, and you can see the figures there for Ireland, and then building up skills within the current employee base. And the whole idea being that, can you reskill and can you upskill people within the organization, and what type of programs can help that? And then as you're bringing in new hires, how can you, if you can't find the right people, how do you upskill those? So as you can see here, identifying skills is a significant challenge, but it also understanding the potential of that data and understanding the potential of AI is also up there in terms of leadership to understand. And when we look at the analytical roles, which is what we're talking about here today, these analytical pathways, you can see these are listed here. This was a study that was done on the future of work by PwC. Using LinkedIn data, the LinkedIn economic graph. You can go there and you can have a look at some of this stuff. And you can see a lot of the roles there in terms of the pathways. And our pathways do focus on these areas in terms of building up that expertise. But what you also see is a real emphasis on understanding, problem solving, critical thinking, the whole idea of how do you position data for value and for gain. And therefore, what we have tried to do in building these pathways is to consider what it is organizations will do in terms of building that value. And therefore, we see three use cases for these pathways. Now, the whole idea of the pathways is they are ready to go. You go in, you can consume them. You don't have to go around and try to piece them together yourself. They're there and ready for you. And they're all about the ability to reskill and to transition employees. So some people may already have a background in IT and may have some background in data analytics. And these pathways give them the potential to become more proficient. It's also an opportunity to upskill people who may be in non-ICT roles, other parts of the business, finance, marketing, HR. There's increasingly an analytics dimension to what they do. And therefore, we want to be able to provide pathways for those to gain that expertise to provide those insights. And also what we're seeing is that because of these skills gaps that are in the marketplace, companies are starting to focus on aptitude. So can they bring in people that have the right type of mindset, the right type of problem solving, and then they can build up the skills. So the emphasis is, have they got the right type of approach to solving problems and to applying that problem to the business and understanding the wider ramifications of data and the business, and then building up those skills. So the mindset and that culture, very, very important for companies, and therefore building up the talent is building up the analytical talent is somewhat secondary to making sure that aptitude is there. So they're the use cases that we have seen for skills at scale based on the evidence that we have, as I said, all the time talking to industry, capturing feedback. So our original version of Skills at Scale is in front of you. We launched this back in February of this year. And this was based on a pilot. We got about 100 people through that pilot from about 40 different industries right across the board: pharma, banking, finance, manufacturing, and so on, technology services. And we tested these and extremely good results in terms of the response and the throughput. And what we've now done is we've looked at that. We've taken on board further feedback that has come. We look at what's happening in the marketplace as well in terms of where the demand is shifting. And we also look at what people are doing on the platform in terms of where is the emphasis, what are the things that they are doing. So as you'll see as I go through this, we've taken on board lots of comments. We've updated some of the data literacy pieces. We've done a major review of the data virtualization. We've done some updates to the data analytics or the SQL part to support some of the initiatives we're going to introduce with respect to data engineering. We've refreshed some of the machine learning as well. But the other big thing is we've focused on bringing into play a lot more guided projects, case studies to allow people to get a real hands-on use of this technology. So when we had our survey and we looked and we said to people, what are the things that you want to see? These were the things. So they asked us around the data literacy, can you make it more around data-driven decision making and communication? The visualization, yeah, we want to do more of that. We would like to do, can you show us around data analysis, building dashboards, reporting, bringing in other data sources? On the SQL side, it was, yeah, database design is important to us, and how you would then integrate that into a data engineering pathway. And we've introduced pathways for data engineering themselves. People asked us, can we have data engineering and statistical analysis? And we've done that. So you'll see engineering, you'll see statistical analysis, and also we're going to introduce pathways around OR. In addition to that, we introduced a significant announcement, which is the role certification. And this is specific roles around data analytics and AI, data analysts, data science, and machine learning. So people can go in, consume particular pathway to that role, and become proficient in it and receive a certification from DataCamp. So they're the things, and I'm happy to say we've gone right across the board, and we've spent a lot of time over the last 3 months building the pathways to address the demand that industry has asked of us. And this is it. Now, a little bit of an eye test, don't worry, I'll zoom in so you can see a little bit more. But as you can see, we've considerably enhanced the pathways right across the board. What you can see is that on the little Q2s, they're the things that are now live. We've made them live last night. Those pathways are now live. So those people who are on the platform, you can see them and you can start to consume them. And then there are some things that we're just holding off until later in the year to announce. But they will come on and they will build on what we've done. So the dark blue boxes are things that are there. Little star means it's new, and the light blue are the ones that we've refreshed. Now I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But as you can see, it's quite extensive, covers all the areas I've just talked about. So I'm just going to zoom in on this piece to give you an indication as to what we are doing here. So this is just that left-hand corner, and I'll just focus on the things that are new. I mean, in terms of the data literacy, as you can see down here, we've taken out things like introduction to spreadsheeting and Python. Now, they're still there. When you go in and you see these pathways, you'll have the option of, if you want to pick, for those people who are on the platform, you want to pick the new pathway, you can. If you want to stick with the old one, or you might see a conglomeration, you'll see actually the two together. If you want to have everything together, or you just want to see the new one, you have an option to do that. But it's very much around the data-driven decision making, how you communicate with data, and we've put something in on AWS Cloud because people are very interested in cloud. So the data literacy continues to introduce you to all those topics, and then more around the business opportunity for data and how you should use it. On the Power BI, very much around user reporting, data modeling, and we're looking at the whole aspect of DAX, the fundamentals of DAX, which is a programming language for Power BI, and then exploratory data analysis, trend analysis, and so on. So a really significant upgrade to what we've done around Power BI, because there's a real demand for visualization. People love data visualization, and it's easy to see why. You can get the impact of data. Tableau, we've introduced an advanced version for Tableau, looking at dashboards, connecting data sources. So as I said, we've refreshed the introduction to Power BI, and we've introduced 2 new aspects for advanced Power BI and advanced Tableau. In addition to that, on the SQL side, we've introduced some concepts around building relational databases. And then on Python, we've refreshed, we've added in cluster analysis. We've also introduced an introduction to artificial intelligence. Also, what you'll see is we've introduced many more case studies. And this is obviously very, very important because it gives up people, as I said, the opportunity to use the expertise that they've built. Having said that, I mean, throughout the modules, you'll see, and those people who have been using it will know that it's reinforced all the time. It's reinforced. This paradigm of you learn and you do is extremely well done within DataCamp platform. Again, we've limited all these individual modules to around 20 hours. So there's respect to a complete pathway, no more than 20 to 30 hours. We've done that deliberately because 20 to 30 hours is a lot, and we don't want to overdo it. We want people to get enthusiastic, get ambitious, and as they go on, they can consume other pathways. And as I said, we'll have introduced the role certification for those who are really ambitious and want to go the extra mile. On the right-hand side, then, in terms of what we're going to introduce, one of the things that came out of the pilot was, could you do something around probability and statistics? And we have. So we've introduced probability and statistics. Now, it won't come in until later in the year, but the whole aspect of the foundation of statistics, probability, looking at the whole area of, for those who are familiar, things like regression to help with prediction, classification, sampling techniques, hypothesis testing to identify particular ideas and to clarify whether they're significant or not. So that is something that later in the year, and along with that, we'll introduce OR, which is a pretty popular statistical package, a very, very rich statistical package. On the Python, on the data engineering side, again, through Python, we've introduced data engineering. It'll look at the whole area of extract, transform, and load, but also the fundamentals of shell and bash scripting, because it's obviously important. And this ties in also to what we've done around the SQL piece, understanding the potential for extracting data from SQL databases, manipulating it, curating it as part of the data engineering process. So they are linking one-to-one. Also, later in the year, we'll introduce data streaming, the whole area of data process and data workflows with PySpark and Airflow and other technologies. Okay. And then the last thing is, as I said, in order to support the statistical piece that we'll introduce, and yes, the statistical piece, we've introduced our program. And sorry, for later in the year, we'll introduce data analysis. And we'll introduce for SQL and Enrol as well, but I'll talk about that in a moment. So that's, as you can see, a lot in it, very comprehensive. Again, no more than 20 to 30 hours, allows people to go in, build up their expertise, get a feeling for this. And then as their ambitions grow, maybe they go on and they do role certifications. And obviously, as their ambitions even grow further, they have the option to go into the other technology ICT SkillNet path or programs around master's or foundation certificate. And so there's for whatever your ambition is, there's an opportunity for you to do that. It really is a one-stop shop, the technology ICT SkillNet, in terms of building up your analytical skills. So how do you access these pathways? Well, you will go on to the Technology ICT SkillNet website, and you can register there. Once you will register, you will enroll on the pathway that you want through the DataCamp platform. Maz will show you that a little bit later on. And then when you go in, you'll go into each of the pathways, and they've got a number of tutorials and exercises. They have assessments. And then you have, as I said, some of them have optional guided projects or case studies that allows you to apply your skills to real life problems. And at the end of that, you can get your certificate of accomplishment. And over time, as I said, you'll get better and better, and you'll feel more confident about using this. And you can consume other pathways. So you're not limited to any single pathway. You can go in, you have access to all the different pathways. As I said, typically 20 to 30 hours. The tutorials, the video tutorials, are never more than maybe 5 to 6 minutes. That's deliberate. And then you have an option to immediately apply that. And then you do an assessment to see where are you on the scale. And if you're not doing so well, you can go back in and you can do it again and keep doing it until you get to a level where you are confident. Now, that bell graph, as I understand, is based on all the various users across DataCamp, and you'll see where you fit. Are you in the top quartile? Are you in the middle? As you get better and better, you'll move along, and you'll see how you're doing relative to all the other people who are using these pathway, or using this content within DataCamp. Now, this is a significant piece, and we're very happy to introduce this, and we'll monitor it and see how well it goes. We're going to introduce a role certification. Now, the role certification we'll start with is for the data analyst. And the data analyst, you can see the various disciplines that are needed to become role certified. Now, what we've done is we've created a pathway dedicated to this. Now, if you feel ambitious enough and you want to go straight to that, you can do that. I'd recommend, maybe if you're new to it, that you can take some other modules, and these modules overlap. So the data literacy fundamentals, if you do that within the data literacy pathway, then when you come in here, obviously it'll match, and you won't have to do that because you'll already have done it, and you'll have done the assessment, and you'll feel better. So you can come straight in, or you can do some of this outside and then come in. But it's about 65 hours. It's obviously therefore, and that's 65 contact hours. So it is a requirement. It's a commitment to get involved. And therefore, if you are new to it, best to probably do some other things first, just to get your confidence and to get your ambition up and get more confident. So, and then later in the year, even more significant, we'll introduce data scientists. Now, the data scientist is obviously, it's a bigger beast. It's about 125 hours. That's contact hours. So it's probably about 6 months of effort, I would say. The data analyst, maybe 2 to 3 months of effort. So just be aware of that. Don't dive into these things straight on unless you some background in analytics and you're confident enough. So from May, if you go on now, you'll have the pathway there for a data analyst, and you can start it. It is through Python. Later in the year, we'll introduce it through R as well. And later in the year, we'll introduce data scientists through R and through Python. So you'll have both. Okay. And just in terms of the role certification, it's a little bit different. You'll register with Technology ICT SkillNet. You'll then enroll on your certified pathway, which are these things here. As I said, a bigger endeavor, 65 hours, 120 hours, as opposed to the 20, 30 hours for a typical pathway. You'll build up your expertise. There's various assessments in there to make sure that you are where you need to be. And then you enter the certification process. And the certification process consists of a timed assessment. So you really have to be on your toes. You have to know your stuff. You get maybe 2 minutes to answer some of these questions. It's pretty quick fire. You then have a coding challenge. And then finally, you have a project that's submitted to DataCamp and that's assessed. And after all that, you get your role certification. So it's not straightforward. It's, you know, it requires endeavor, it requires commitment, but the rewards are significant at the end of it. These certificates are gaining ground with respect to DataCamp. And it's a very ambitious program, and fair play to them in terms of doing this. And it's great that Technology ICT SkillNet can now offer this to you. Before I go to Ruairi, in terms of how do you gain access to the pathways, it's €249 to gain access to the pathways. You get access to them all. You get access to the role certification, and that's valid right up until March 2023. Go to if you want to look at what's in each of the pathways in a lot more detail than what I've gone through here, you can go to the website here, and you can go through and you'll see what's in all the pathways and what's involved and what you learn. So before you go on and you start committing yourself, you can go through that. It's very comprehensive. Gillian from Technology ICT SkillNet and the team have put that together. It's very comprehensive, and it gives you a real perspective on all the pathways, what the role certification involves. And so go up there, go through it, and make sure you're comfortable. As I said, the $249, fantastic value, because you're getting all the pathways. You can do them as many times as you like, and you're getting the role certification. So it's a real, I think it's a hugely valuable resource. I think it's probably one of the most comprehensive. I spend a lot of time looking at pathways and mechanisms to upscale right across the globe. And to my mind, it's probably one of the most comprehensive of this type, micro-credentialing type approach. It's extremely comprehensive, and it will continue to grow and enhance. And the fact that you're getting the role certification is very valuable indeed for any organization and for any individual. Okay, so that's the platform. That's what we've developed. That's what we're going to introduce. I'm going to come to Ruairi. I'm just going to stop sharing. And Ruairi's joining us from Bank of Ireland. And Ruairi is involved with the investment and retail program, looking at various models. And what we want to do is just get Ruairi's perspective, maybe just introduce yourself, Ruairi, a little bit. You know, the whole area of what does your group do? Just give us a perspective on what they do and what's the value, what's the importance of data to those things that you do.
Sure. Okay. So look, thanks. My name is Ruairi Cahill. I work for Bank of Ireland. I've been here for about 3 years. Prior to that, I've spent many years with regulators, other banks, with consulting firms like Accenture. But throughout all that time, I worked on risk and regulatory programs in a financial services setting here in Europe. I lead at the moment, as Anthony said, an IRB program within the group, and that program sits inside our decision science function. Our decision science function sits inside our group credit function, which sits inside our group risk division overall. What's that program about? Well, let's start with the very beginning. So without meaning to patronize anybody, capital is very much the lifeblood of a bank, and it is the money that we use to grow, either through investment or lending. But it's also the money we set aside to protect against shocks and losses and unexpected shocks and losses. Regulators, the ECB, will require all banks to hold a certain amount of that capital in reserve to protect against those kinds of unexpected losses. If a bank can demonstrate that it can meet certain requirements, if it can show that it has certain abilities, then the banks will allow regulators to use quantitative risk models to estimate the amount of capital that should be set aside. That isn't said to say that we can choose the amount. The regulator obviously has a say in that, but they will allow us to do the work to estimate what it should be. Bank of Ireland is one such bank, an IRB bank, and we have about 40 of those models in total. They're all credit risk models, and each of those models will cover different types of business portfolios. The outputs of the model are used for two purposes: one, to help us make decisions about new lending, and two, then to help us estimate the amount of capital we should hold against losses. About 5 or 6 years ago, the ECB launched an initiative to review all of the models across European banks. And their aim was, in their own words, to remove unwarranted variability in the level of capital the banks were holding. In other words, they felt that the models were producing results that weren't consistent across all banks, and therefore they decided they should look at that. As a consequence, there's been a raft of new regulation and guidance on how you have to build and maintain those models. And it's a big job with 40 models. So the bank launched a program to do just that, to refresh all those models. So I head up that program. There's about 70 people involved altogether. Very large contingent of quantitative analysts and a very large contingent of data analysts, because data is what this is all about. For the last couple of years, we've been very heavily focused on rebuilding the models and simply getting them redesigned. And we're kind of switching our focus now to getting them put in place. And it's a bigger job than you might expect, because you have to get regulatory approval, you have to go through inspections, there's a lot of scrutiny, and then you have to be very careful about how you implement them so there's no unintended consequences. So why is data important for that? Well, what we're doing is modeling credit risk, and what that really means is observing patterns in historical data and predicting future outcomes based on those patterns, put more simply. So from a data perspective, that means we have to acquire the data, we have to clean it, we have to understand it, we have to analyze it, we have to build the models with it, and then we have to present those models. So there's a lot in that. And it's not just about crunching numbers, because when you're building models like this, you're not operating solo. You have to demonstrate to the regulator, to your governance forums in the bank, and to your stakeholders, the business who use these models, that they're doing the right thing. And so unfortunately for us, we don't get to sit in the deep analytics side of things. We have to do all of that work to acquire, clean, understand, analyze, and build models. And we then have to make it presentable so that everybody else can understand it. So as you can see, data is everything, and the ability to not just use it, but to provide insight with it is very, very important. For us, this training around this platform in particular has had a huge benefit in a number of ways. I think first and foremost for us, we have had to bring in a lot of new people to do the work that we're doing. Number one, and some of those people will be at varying levels of skill and expertise in analytics and in data management. And so we have been trying to find ways to bring everybody to at least a common level. And this platform is very useful in that regard, particularly because we're now starting to use Python more than we have in the past to actually deploy these models. So we use tools like SAS to build them, and we use, of course, everybody uses tools like SQL, and we all use Excel, etc. But SAS is our key building tool. But then we have to deploy them, and we use Python to do that. We also use Tableau quite a lot to explain what's going on with these models afterwards. So for us, there are three areas of the platform that are very interesting of the training. There's the Python side of things, the data visualization side of things, and there's the SQL side of things. So it's been very useful for us because, and I suppose almost tailored to us, because it hits those three key areas that are very, very important to us. And so that explains why the training is suitable for us. But we were involved in the pilot before Christmas. And the next question then naturally, I suppose, would be, why did we stick with it after we finished the pilot? What did we learn about this training, or what did we gain from this training that told us, yes, it hits the right marks, but it hits them very well? And I suppose there's a few answers to that. I think that the fact that it's modular and that it has foundational and more advanced modules has been hugely useful, because not everybody is at the same level. We have people coming from college, and we have people who've been working in analytics for 20 years but have never touched Python before. So we need the ability to bring people to a common level and then allow people who are already at that level to go further. And this platform does just that, because you have these different and varying levels of skill required. The self-pacing of it is also hugely important to us. We have some people who want to travel at light speed and will consume every module within a week. And then we have some people who will do it when they have time, and they're busy people. And the fact that nobody is under pressure to get certain things done in a certain amount of time, within constraints, of course, and the fact that people are not being required to slow down is hugely useful. It means everybody can work at the pace that they want to. We've had really good feedback on the platform. One of the challenges we've had with technical training in the past is that you're required to install a whole bunch of software in your computer, or you're required to put different tools in place to use. And that's really difficult in a large organization where PCs are locked down and software installation is performed centrally and only if approved, and if you've gone through the 7 circles of hell to get this new piece of software approved to use it. There's none of that on this platform. It's all self-contained, and that makes life very easy. You click and you go, and people found that great. So that was a really strong piece of feedback we had. Additionally, people have just commented on the quality in general, and they feel that the balance is struck very well between practical and theoretical elements of the training, and that the level of intrusion, for want of a better word, of guidance into the training is just about right. So in other words, you spend enough time working practically without being bombarded with new information and tips and tools, etc. So it's pleasant, I think is the word to use, and the quality of the training is very strong. I think for us, another real plus, and I think this shouldn't be underestimated by anybody who works with analytical colleagues. I mean, the market is extremely hot for data skills and analytical skills right now. And we're constantly competing in that marketplace to bring people in and to keep people. And it's not easily done, because there's lots of other people out there tempting them away all the time. So it's important that you offer people a career experience that doesn't just focus on what they're doing today. That doesn't just say, well, you're now a quantitative analyst working in credit risk in Bank of Ireland, and therefore that's all you need to focus on, and we're only going to provide training around that. You need to offer people the opportunity to, in some way, or as best you can, and it's not perfect and never will be, but offer them an opportunity to look to their future and to the career that they want to have, as well as the career that they are having. And the variety in this training is really strong, because people can build skills around things that they're interested in, not just things that they need to be able to do day to day. And I think we've seen in the registrations from our Bank of Ireland colleagues, yes, a lot of people have focused on the skills that they need today, but we're seeing, and I'm hearing from my colleagues, that as we move into the next phase of this, they're starting to look at other areas that they want to know about, that satisfies their intellectual curiosity as opposed to their work need. So look, in the round, excellent platform, excellent training delivered through that platform, well-paced, well laid out, modular, and really satisfies the need for people that people have to meet their day-to-day job needs, as well as their aspirations for the future. So I just want to thank Anthony, Gillian, Dave, and the guys, and everyone at Data Camp for making this available to us. We're delighted to be part of it, and I'm very happy to sit here today and say that I think it's excellent, and my colleagues who have used it think it's excellent. We do. And we're looking forward to moving out of the pilot now and into this next phase, and working for a long time to come with skills at scale.
That's brilliant. And I mean, you've touched on some things, and it does resonate with what people come back to us and say from industry, is that, it's modular. It builds ambition, it's consumable, and people like that. But I think the variety element is something that you talked about. And that ability to be able to look across a number of different platforms or different pathways. Now, again, we continue to review those and to expand them. But I think the important piece that you talked about was that, it builds ambition and people can go in, and it's self-paced. And there's that, I think it is an infectious element to it. The way it's designed is that when people get going, that ambition builds. One thing I did want to just ask you about,
Sure.
When we're looking at the platform, we're looking at people using, we see them coming in from two ends. They come in from the data literacy end, and they go on to visualization, and then and SQL, and you know, very, very important. You talked about it yourself. And then we see people coming through the Python side, and they go into the machine learning piece. And I'm just wondering, in terms of yourself, you know, the whole data literacy bit and democratizing data within the bank, that data literacy bit, how important is that in terms of just getting people to recognize the potential of data? You know, even people who are maybe not in your area that are obviously steeped in some of this stuff, but how important is it to give up people that perspective on data? How, you know, you're communicating the value of what you're doing to people who are maybe new to this. How important is it that they understand that opportunity?
Oh, it's essential, and it comes from two different points, Anthony, as far as I see it. So in Bank of Ireland in recent years, there has been a big focus, and some of it directly driven, but more of it internally driven, on sorting out our data, for want of a more technical term. So a new function, a high-powered, well-funded function full of really good people called our Group Data Office has been set up to make sure that we're collecting our data correctly and we're using our data correctly. And those two things are the different angles to the point you speak to. So on the one hand, making use of your data, how do you make use of your data, and how you get value from that, how you get insights from that. We've been on quite a significant journey in Bank of Ireland to actually start making use of our data in a much better way. We have a new customer analytics function. As you know, from my side, on the analytics and business growth side, we are rebuilding our entire suite of models. But I think in general, I mean, you'd have to be living under a rock not to have heard, seen, or understood in recent years the value of data and big data, and the value of using data. I think sometimes what gets lost in that a little bit is that in order to do that, you need to have that data. You need to have built it. It needs to be clean. It needs to be usable. It needs to be well structured. And I think that is what we're really learning in the group at the moment, and what we're putting a huge focus on. As we build all of these models, we have huge struggles acquiring the data because some of it hasn't been systemized 20 years ago. And we go back a long way when we're building models in terms of the data we gather. And what we used to find is we would go and acquire that data, clean it up for our purposes, and then nobody would want to talk about it anymore. It would all be, right, well, we don't need to worry about it. We have it now. Now the conversation has changed. The conversation is, great, you're building a model, but how are you going to make sure that that data is available in perpetuity now and in its nice clean form and reusable into the future? So in terms of the general intelligence around data, people's focus has shifted from data being in the bank, it has shifted from being a pain in the backside, to be quite honest. It's something that needs to be maintained and cleaned. It's seen as an asset, and it's invested in now. People are investing their own budgets and making sure that their data is clean and available. And actually, when you work in an organization like Bank of Ireland, of course, we have a large centralized EDW, but we've all sorts of data sources hanging off the side of that. We've all sorts of different ways of consuming it. And this platform and this training really comes into play when you look at it from that particular angle, because one skill isn't enough. If you want to do something with the data, you're probably going to have to acquire it. You're going to have to clean it. You're going to have to understand how to prove to somebody that it's worth using, or that it's worth spending time and money and effort on. And actually, what we see through Data Camp is that you're giving people a broad enough span. People are able to learn a little bit about how to acquire and the data and clean it and analyze it and use it for building models, but they're also learning through the visualization side, let's say, how to turn that into meaningful messages for the business so that you can reinforce the importance of having that data for future modeling purposes. And then, of course, as I said, the Python piece is hugely important for us because we're moving to implementing our models on our EDW without getting too technical instead of in our source systems. That'll all be done through the common Python language. So we need everybody to come up to a certain level of skill. So SQL for gathering and for cleaning and for cleansing, all that kind of thing. Tableau for proving that it's worth investing in, and then Python for making it work. So for us, it spans the entire model lifecycle. And it gives us the tools that we're using, and the support from the training gives us the ability to actually go and demonstrate to our business colleagues, look, if you clean up your data, if you invest in it, if you make sure it's clean, yes, when we go to consume it and build a model, we can build a model that's better for you, that will allow you to do better business, that will allow you to do more business. And here's the proof. And that's why it's so important. And that's how people are coming at it. Bit of a garbled answer, but I hope it gives the essence of
No, I think it does. I mean, and I said it to you before we started our webinar today. Rory works part of a group called Decision Science, and I think it just encapsulates, it's a lovely little phrase because it really is a science. The whole aspect of making decisions is a science and understanding the data. Look, you've been very good to come along, Rory, and thank you for that. And I think you've given a very good perspective with respect to why people should go and consume these pathways. But the fact that they're relevant to what the market wants. It's not just your industry. It's a lot of companies are saying we've hit the nail on the head. Okay, I'm going to go over to Maz. Maz is a customer success manager from DataCamp, and he helps me no end in terms of putting this together. I spend lots of time, day and night, asking him to do stuff, and he's never let me down yet. And his colleague in New York, Yashas, has also been very influential in terms of helping me to shape this offering. Maz, what I want to do is just ask you to let people see what the platform is like, how they would access the pathways, and then maybe what a pathway looks like once you go into it, just to get people comfortable to what they will expect.
Perfect. Thank you, Anthony, for the introduction. I'm going to make this short and sweet for everyone. Yep. So now I'm going to share my screen and walk you through the platform. So let me just share, just to confirm. Can you see my screen?
We can indeed.
Perfect. So once you get access to the platform, this is the page that you're going to land on. And in order for you to access the pathways that Anthony was referring to, there are two options to do that. So here, we refer within the platform to the pathways as custom tracks. So you can access these pathways through ScAle, or you can go on the left-hand side on the navigation panel under catalog. You press on tracks, then you're going to see a set of tracks in here. Then you have to go on custom tracks. So once you put on custom tracks, you land on the pathways that are listed in here. And one thing to note in here, for you to distinguish the pathways from all other tracks that are out there in the platform, we prepend the name of Ireland ICT SkillNet at the beginning of these tracks. So as you can see in here. So we have a wide range of tracks or pathways that you can enroll yourself on. So if we take as an example, technology, Ireland ICT SkillNet, Python programming fundamentals. If you want to know more about this pathway, you just put read more. And this is where you can see how the pathway is structured. So this one will take you approximately 15 hours to complete. It's composed of 4 courses and 1 skill assessment. And this pathway is sequentially built, starting from introductory to more advanced courses. And it ends with an assessment where it measures your proficiency and also to know to what level you have mastered these skills within these 4 courses that are listed in here. Once you have completed this pathway, you will receive a statement of accomplishment at the end of this pathway. One thing to know in here, if you go to any of these particular courses that are within the pathways, you can see how also this course is structured. So everything, basically, if we take this as an example, it's going to take you approximately 4 hours to complete. It's composed of 11 videos and 57 exercises. And this is where you get the course description. Also, it's so each chapter will take you 1 hour to complete. And you can see how the chapter is structured. Everything starts with a video. As Anthony mentioned, this video will take you approximately 4 to 6 minutes to complete. Then it starts with a couple of exercises. And one thing you can see in here, we have more emphasis on exercises than videos because DataCamp believes in learning by doing. So we want you to spend most of your time as a learner, hands on keyboard, exercising the skill, acquiring it, then applying it in your job. And if we go on this particular chapter, you can see this is the video where the instructor is explaining the topic. Then it starts with a couple of exercises. And as you can see, you don't have to download any softwares. Everything is embedded as part of the interface. Here you can see the exercise, the instruction, and this is where you have to put your solution. And then you can start coding this exercise and solving this. This is an overview on these pathways that exist, but also you have access to the certifications. In terms of the certification, the way you can distinguish them from all other pathways that are in there, you can see certification in here. And as you can see, these are more time intensive and it needs commitment from your side. So if you put read more, for example, you can see the technologies that are being covered. So it's Python, SQL, and theory. It's composed of 4 different projects, 3 skill assessment, and broken down into 18 different courses. And this will help you to basically successfully pass our data analyst certification that we offer. Once you complete this custom track, then you're ready to go over to go over the certification process that we offer. And in case you want to enroll yourself, you just switch track. Since I'm already enrolled in a different track, I have to switch from one track to another. And this is when you can start completing this track that is listed in here. And you can follow your progress on the right-hand side. And these are the instructors, basically, that put together these courses and these projects and the 3 different assessments that we offer. That's an overview regarding the pathways that we offer, or that ICT SkillNet put together for your needs. Any questions in here? Anthony, do you want me to elaborate on any specific piece of content?
That's fine. I think it gives people an idea of what to expect. As you can see, it's extremely easy. You log in, you go to the custom tracks, you'll see all the pathways we've developed. And what Maz was saying in terms of the assessments were in the certification mapped to the assessments that are in individual pathways. So they give you a very good grounding. As I said, if you want to start doing some of the pathways, and then once you feel more confident, move over to the certification, you'll see that those assessments link in nicely, and you'll be building the same skills, and you'll be some of the heavy lifting will be done for you. So thank you, Maz. I think that's very clear in terms of how people get onto it. It's very, very simple. You go to your pathway, you step through it, and at the end of it, you get your certificate of certification or your certificate of accomplishment. As Maz was saying, and as I've said, the role certification is more of a commitment in time and across a number of areas. Okay, so just be aware of that. But very ambitious. I think it's a very comprehensive platform, and you've heard from Ruairi. People like it when they go on and they consume it and they grow. Thank you for that, Maz, and you're very kind to step us through that. I will just, if anybody has any questions, please drop them into the chat. I think it's been quite clear, everything so far. I'm just going to wrap up in terms of just summarizing what it is then Skills at Scale version 2 incorporates. So as Maz has showed you, and as I spoke about earlier, you now have 8 different areas. You have data literacy, which looks at understanding the potential of AI and data and how you enable the data decision making. So a grounding on the different areas like cloud, data science, machine learning, AI, and then how you start using that knowledge in terms of decision making, communicating it within organizations. Data visualization, making data come to life. The whole idea of communicating the value of insights, extremely valuable and very topical at the moment, a huge demand for people in this space. Business SQL, still very popular, still used, still at the heart of things such as data engineering, the whole idea of, and a huge amount of data still in structured format across the world, how you interrogate databases, consolidate it, aggregate it, and so on. And then you're off into other areas such as Python. As Ruairi was saying, obviously it seems to be the language of choice in terms of building some machine learning models. Machine learning then itself, so once you've got that foundation knowledge of Python, you can go off and start building your expertise in machine learning around cluster analysis, supervised, unsupervised learning. And then the ones we're now introducing today. So we've enhanced those dark blue boxes, the light blue ones that we've introduced today, or are introducing data engineering, which is now available, statistical analysis, which will come later in the year, and that big one, that role certification, that's now available. So if you want to become a role certified analyst, you can start that today. If you want to do data science, that'll be available later in the year. And just to close out, how you go about it and the price. In terms of if you're on the platform, you'll continue on the platform. So those people who are on the platform have access to this as well. That continues, and that license remains in place for people who are coming in and acquire a new license. Then they also get access. So if you're on the platform and you're working away, nothing changes. You get access to these things. You'll actually see them now. They went live yesterday evening. The role certification there as well. For those people who want to come in, you can go to, I would advise you go to the site, the bottom of the page there. You can look at all the pathways. You can see all the content that's in them. It gives you an explanation, and then you can go over and enroll, and you'll go through it as Maz has pointed out. Now, have we got, I think we had one question there. I think the link has gone out just in the chat there. I've answered that question. So look, I will leave it at that. My thanks to Ruairi, as I said, head of the IRB program over at Bank of Ireland, and gave a very good appreciation of why data is important and the value that they are seeing from Skills at Scale. My absolute thanks to Maz for showing you a little bit about the platform and the experience of when you get in. It is very straightforward. And thanks to him and his colleague Yashas in New York for the work he's done. And thank you to Gillian for all the work she's done in terms of putting the website together so that you can see that. And as ever, thanks to Dave Feenan and to Susan Kelly over at Technology ICT SkillNet for investing in this, along with SkillNet Ireland, the overall funding body. The vision and the commitment to do this is to be commended. And finally to Sarah, who's done our production here today. Okay, look, we'll leave it at that. The recording, I think, will go out later. It'll be up on the Technology ICT SkillNet YouTube site, so you can go through it at your leisure. And we'll probably send out a link as well to all those people who are on the call. And probably see a LinkedIn notification is then, so you can read it again and you can share it with your colleagues. Thank you all for joining us this morning for this. We're very proud of this announcement in terms of version 2.0 of our Skills at Scale, and our thanks to our colleagues in DataCamp. And as I said, thanks to all our colleagues in Technology ICT SkillNet, and to Angie, my partner in arms, for all the work she's done as well in helping put this together. Good morning to you all, and have a good day, and try and get out and enjoy the sunshine, and maybe sign up and start your journey in the role of analytics. Okay, goodbye everybody, and good morning.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.